Alright, tell me if this has been you before. You just got this thing, and you want to build your first character. Now in it has a directive for step-by-step characters, but to be honest with you, every time I've tried to follow it, it's very confusing and I end up double-picking stuff. So here's my theory on how you should start to build your first D&D 5e character, step by step. Step 1 is start with your background. Now I might catch some flack for this, but to be honest with you, starting with a background is the thing that helps you design not only your character narratively, but also mechanically the most effective way. Narratively, by thinking about what your character's past has been, the thing that has shaped their present becomes clearer to you, and therefore you're able to more effectively construct a personality and possibly a backstory, which ultimately should inform the mechanics that you choose for your character anyway. Now I know the counterpoint to this would be if you don't understand how ability scores work, you don't know what benefits having a certain skill would give you. And to that, I'd say it's much better to pick a skill that you know you are going to use and how to use it, rather than to worry right now about what the numbers are going to be from the mechanics of the game. It also gives you the starting point of having personality traits that you can roll from if you so wish to, and also a bit of starting equipment and languages that you may or may not speak. This can inspire you to pick a certain lineage, or in the player's handbook they call it a race. The feature that it gives you as well describes a benefit that you may have in the world, which is probably the most helpful thing for your DM to know about your character when they are trying to place you in their world. But of course, if you don't find something that suits you in the player's handbook, you can always use the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything rule that lets you construct a custom background. That way, even if you're not playing in a setting that's super high fantasy, you can still fit into the world just fine. Step 2 is going to be to select a lineage, or race, as it says it in the player's handbook. It's important to talk about here that in the Forgotten Realms lore, which is the published D&D campaign setting, there is an inherent racial conflict present in not only the mechanics, but also the story setups and modules that accompany D&D 5e. The important thing, I think, to remember here, though, is that each race features a specific set of mechanical benefits that, if it feels like we would ascribe to your character, you can use, and it will be balanced for the game. Part of the fun of D&D is you can make up whatever your character looks like. It doesn't have to particularly align with the mechanical benefits set that you chose for this particular part of your character. However, some DMs may choose to feature racial conflict as a part of their homebrew world, or to play traditional D&D 5e in the Forgotten Realms setting in the way where racial conflict is a feature. So in that case, your DM might direct you to pick a certain race or pick a certain lineage based on who your character is, what job they've had, and where that fits in the world. Mechanically, though, this is the first time where ability scores are mentioned, and you don't have to worry about what those values are right now, but just make sure to mark those bonuses inside your character sheet on the ability scores that you've chosen to increase, or the ones that come from the set lineage that you chose. And of course, if nothing suits you, there is a Tasha's Cauldron of Everything rule that allows you to pick a custom lineage. Feel free to do that. Step 3 is going to be select your ability scores.
Hey, now what's this guy talking about? We haven't even selected a class yet. How do we want to know where to put our ability scores?
Yes, I know it's unintuitive, but the reason that I put it here is in case you want to pick your class based on your ability scores that are set in stone, rather than the other way around. I often find that for new players, it's much easier to let their ability scores determine their class rather than the other way around. Because if it is the other way around, then they have to learn what each of the class does, or mechanically how it works, and figure out whether or not they might like playing that thing. This is a notably hard challenge for someone who has never actually played the game before, and therefore something I don't usually recommend doing. If the player does gravitate towards a specific class, though, this is flexible enough where you can still switch the ability scores before they get there, so they can still have mechanical benefits for the class that they're playing. Now, there are 3 ways that your DM might have you generate ability scores, and I'm going to walk through them very quickly, very surface level, not going to tell you which one is best. Depends on the DM. The first method that it recommends in the player's handbook is to roll 4d6 and take the lowest off, and use that as one of your ability scores. Now you have to do that 6 times, and you can either pick which one you're rolling for before you know the result, or use each of your rolls as a set of numbers and decide which ability score they should go into after. The other one that it mentions in the player's handbook is standard array. It gives you a set of ability score numbers that you can ascribe to the ability score of your choosing and go from there. Standard array, to be honest, is generally the easiest one because you don't have to roll anything and everyone is actually at the same level in terms of balance. The third, which I don't see it mentioned in the player's handbook, but is a very common method, is to add each of the scores from standard array up to a total amount of points, and then subtract from those points or allocate those points into different ability scores based on your preferences. This method is known as point buy, and it's very common for people who are a little more experienced. If you are using this method, it's important to note that a DM might give you a different number, and it's important to use the number that the DM gives you rather than the one I said to use as reference. There are balance reasons for that, but if you're a new player, you don't really have to worry about that. If you're a DM, though, I can make another video about how to do that. Alright, now that you have a lineage, a background, and your ability scores in place, it's time, finally, to choose a class. Your class in D&D really only corresponds to what you can do when you get into a fight. There are, of course, other mechanical benefits that allow you some utility outside of combat, but that being said, this game was designed by wargamers, so the legacy of that continues to hold for each of the classes. When it comes to which one to pick, I have a little bit of a method to help you decide, but it may not be what you're looking for. If you have a preconceived notion of what you'd like to play or what kind of character you'd like to play, go for that. The mechanics may not be something that you like, but you'll at least be satisfying the flavor itch that you've come into this game having to itch. That being said, I would liken picking a character class to picking a playstyle in a video game, and if you don't like the style that your class presents to you, then, well, you might end up multi-classing or switching characters or being unsatisfied. I will say that this method is biased against spellcasters because generally the spellcasting mechanics in D&D are a little bit messy unless you're familiar with TTRPGs or familiar with RPGs in general. This method is just a set of 3 questions. The first question I call the milkshake question. Imagine you're drinking a milkshake and there's a hole that punctures in the middle of the straw. You can keep drinking the milkshake, and you know that eventually it'll get to the hole, at which point you will no longer be able to use the straw. What do you do? Their answer to this question lets me interpret how they like to go about solving problems and how much time they like to spend solving problems. I find generally that if you don't like to spend time tinkering with things, a wizard is not going to be a good pick for you because you're going to be met with decision paralysis, whereas if you do, a wizard might be a great pick for you because all those options are going to make you think critically about your choices in combat. The second question is always chess or checkers. This is generally a question I use to assess their attention span on the scale of, I don't know, checkers I guess, to definitely chess, where checkers is somewhere in the middle. The third question usually relates to what position that person is in my life. If they're a friend, a stranger, someone who I've known for a while who's wanted to try the game, it all depends on the person. But it's usually something to the effect of, what aesthetic are you going for, and how seriously do you take made-up things? But of course, that's just a theory, and you can build it however you want.